Hi, I'm Robin Walker with VSP Walker, and welcome to another VSP Walker video blog. Last week we started talking about increasing profits through synchronization. We talked about an analogy where you and 3 of your team players went on a trek and what happened during that trek. And then we started discussing, or listing at least, the 7 elements of manufacturing. So let's talk about those 7 elements in a little more detail today. So first, results. Well, results are really what we will achieve. Now, notice I like to call them results and not goals. And I say what we will achieve, not what we will try to achieve. Because I think it has a much powerful statement when you say, these are the results that we are going to achieve. When you say try, all you do is say, I am giving you an excuse to fail. So that's why I use the word results. Strategy. How we will achieve those. Now let's start with these 2 things and talk about our analogy a little bit. First on the results. What were the results of the trek? Or the trek. What happened is when you got there, the guide said start. And you just need to end. Well, what kind of result is that? Does that tell you what you need to achieve? Is it smart? Is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? Is it realistic? Is it timely? All those acronyms we use to determine good results. No, it was not. It was simply get there. That is not a result. That is not something that inspires anyone for any type of action. But then let's talk about the strategy. How are you going to achieve it? Strategy to me is the focus. It's the focus on how we're going to achieve those results. Let's think about your strategy. There definitely in our example was no team strategy. We had Bob, his strategy was 1 mile a day. Stu was run like a wild man and get there as fast as possible and prove what a great runner he is. Katie was 6 miles a day and you were just let things happen. That is not a strategy. A strategy is a very specific, focused approach to how we are going to achieve those results. Now, let's talk about leadership. Leadership. If we look at the guide that we had, was he a leader? Well, let's ask ourselves that question. Did he coach us? Did he inspire us? At all? No, not at all. Did he guide us? Not at all. There was no leadership involved in this trek, and that was part of the problem for why it failed. Now let's talk about the culture. The culture in your organization is the way in which you relate. How does everyone relate? How are people motivated? What is that culture? The bigger question I always have around culture is the fear of change greater than the risk of a non-start? Remember your culture? Well, definitely it was not a team-based culture because everyone just set out on their own, right? But remember Bob when he got done? The poor guy, it took him 10 days. Remember Bob rolled in 10 days. He had to have medical attention. When you said you wanted to do this again, he said no. The fear of change, in his opinion, was higher than the risk of a non-start. Is that a culture? And notice with Bob, that fear came from a past experience. It's not because Bob's lazy. Bob was willing to do it. It was because of an experience that he had, that he held a belief that it was easier based on the culture to not start than to risk the change and fear getting in trouble if something bad happens. So that's a culture, what we do with it, right? So what's your culture? Processes. Well, the processes are detail, right? Devil's in the detail. It's the step-by-step of how we get things done. And you're probably ISO 9000 certified, and you have all these great operational procedures and documentation, so everyone knows all the steps and processes need to get done, right? Absolutely. What was our process here? Well, our process was our paths to get through. And it didn't seem to work out very well, was it? But there was a process, there was a path. Let's talk about the systems. Systems in your organization are made to support and simplify business. There you You kidding me, Robin? Simplify business. Our systems do not simplify business. Our systems complicate business. What were the systems in this trek? Our system was the map. What happened with the map? Well, it didn't have these paths even listed. It had a dead end. System did not support what we wanted to do, and it definitely didn't simplify our ability to get to the end. What it did is it resulted in inefficiencies. So, complicated our lives. And the last one is the metrics. So the metrics simply just tell us how we're doing. And they also drive behavior. You've probably heard the phrase, tell me how you measure me and I'm going to tell you how I'm going to behave. I mean, that is so true. Metrics, if they are not lined up with the results, if they are not lined up with the strategy, if they're not lined up with what culture you need to create, you're not going to get anywhere. Now, let's look at this example again. The first person through, you got through in 2 days, right? Poor Bob, who, remember, we had to go rescue him and he required medical treatment, he got there 10 days later. That's an 8-day difference. Was the lack of leadership, the lack of a strategy, the lack of good systems, no metrics in place whatsoever. The culture was very individualistic, if you will, very fear-based, if you will. There's an 8-day difference in what we know is possible, 2 days, and what actually happened when the whole team got out. What does 8 days equal in your business? It equals money. And might I say, it equals money that we're talking cost, not profit. When these 7 elements are not synchronized, are not looked at and said, do these all work together the way I need them to work together so we get to the result using the strategy that we want to use? Am I leading? Am I inspiring? Am I coaching? Are people relating to each other well? Do I have step-by-step processes? Are my systems in place? Are they simplifying? Are my metrics in place? When those things are synchronized, the amount of profitability that an organization can achieve is astounding. I hope you spend some time looking at these 7 elements and if they're synchronized. If you have any questions about that, I would love to talk with you further. And in further video blogs, we will be talking about each of those elements in a lot more detail. Plus, join me next time, because next time what we're going to talk about is not only can you synchronize, but there is an overlying umbrella, if you will, called complexity versus simplicity. And when you synchronize and then put simplicity on top of it, it is phenomenal, the results that you can achieve. So, until next time, remember, velocity, make things happen faster. Simplicity, don't make business harder than it needs to be. And profitability, make more money. Thanks for joining me.